Greetings, Remote Academy family and friends. I'm the Remote Academy Director, Sean Musselman, and I welcome you to our Burlington Remote Academy orientation / back to school night. This experience is an asynchronous example of how learning can be done in a remote setting. We hope that by filming this event and sharing it with you via our blogs and different social media outlets, you can enjoy this experience in the comfort of your own home on your time and be able to revisit topics that are important to you when you see fit. Let's get started. Some of what we share today will reference a new parent resource website that we've created. It is a Google site, which is a form of a wiki, and its URL is sites.google.com/bps-k12.org/burlington-remote-academy. Feel free to pause the video and explore this page as we discuss different topics moving through our orientation. The tabs at the top of the website include a staff directory. There are 38 full-time staff members dedicated to students at the Remote Academy. All of these educators have been ordered to give your students straight A's this year. And when I mean straight A's, I do not mean the A's that we see on a traditional report card. Rather, I'm talking about 4 A's that will guide my leadership and our teaching and practice this year. Each of these A's have specific ideas applied to them that I'll now share with you. Just like any brick and mortar school, the Remote Academy is dedicated to serving students who are on IEPs and 504 plans, as well as students who require English language learning services. ELL services are served by Mrs. Lily Gutenplan and Karen Kim, teachers from the Memorial and Pine Glen schools respectively. Special ed services are provided by Remote Academy teachers at the grades 3 through 5 level, including recently added Teresa Sue Smith, who will be replacing Michelle Hayden, who's going on maternity leave at the end of October. Special education for grades K through 2 will continue to be provided by teachers from the school of the student's origin, as will guidance support. Access, of course, also means the devices that you've all been logging in with to your Remote Academy classrooms. I'm happy to report that we have distributed over 420 iPads at this point, some with even door-to-door service for those requiring it due to difficult professional time constraints. I'm also happy to report that as problems have come up, our team has been able to serve you by getting the needed repairs or swapped devices out, usually within 3 to 4 days' notice. Though I admit some of us have slipped through the cracks, and for that I apologize. Moving forward, we have a third-party business that has been hired to support some of the technical needs across our entire district. We'll have more information on that as it is required. I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank the Burlington Public Library for their services in helping us get all of these materials into your hands. There are still many notebooks, art supplies, and other materials that will be coming to you in the coming weeks and months. And we hope that you'll continue to pay attention to the announcements that we pass on to you about when the appropriate time for your child to pick those materials up will be. We will be delivering materials more on a grade or even class by class basis, so make sure to pay attention to communications that are specific to your classroom rather than all calls for the district. I'd now like to take some time to respond to some questions about our curriculum and scope and pace here in the Remote Academy. Right now, our students are receiving the same amount of time on learning, if not more, I might say, based on the way that Remote Academy runs. In the Remote Academy and in person, all students receive the same amount of instruction in the following sections of their day. Each student receives 60 minutes of ELA support, 60 minutes of math support. At the grade 1 through 5 levels, they also receive 30 minutes of science or social studies each day, excluding the half-day Wednesdays. Our students at the Remote Academy also receive 30 minutes of social emotional learning, split between the time spent in morning meeting and some specific SEL time later in the day. All of our students also receive 30 minutes of specials, which is a time that is commonly used as our teachers' preparatory time. And in the Remote Academy, we have the special circumstance of setting aside 30 minutes of independent learning in their school day. We call that time what I need or win time. This is time that is set for independent work that teachers have given students or asking students to finish up. This is also the time commonly used by our special ed and ELL staff to support those students' needs based on their required special pull-out learning. This calendar is an example of what our teachers are following each and every week. It's the same calendar that is actually shared with all of our teachers across the 4 brick and mortar buildings as well as Remote Academy. So again, our scope and sequence is aligned with what is being experienced in school. That being said, of course, our teachers are responding to the specific individual needs of our students and tailoring their learning accordingly. This brings us to the A that is probably the most difficult for our teachers to provide. And that is, of course, the necessary adjustments that we have found and continue to find while serving your students in the Remote Academy. Many of you in your comments and concerns expressed the challenge of the additional expectations put in place on our students as well as our teachers. These expectations include a lot more independent work and work that is challenging our teachers' best practice knowledge. As we know, what might work in a classroom setting does not necessarily have an equivalent in the remote space. One thing that I'd like to make completely clear to our Remote Academy families is the importance of having an adult that is accessible throughout the day for those times when the students struggle with a technical challenge or some sort of redirection being necessary. We can't stress enough that it is much harder for our teachers to know exactly what's happening on a student's paper or device, as students have largely been reduced down from into rectangles that are being observed from a distance. That poses a whole other set of challenges that our teachers are dealing with based on privacy concerns and just being able to check in with our students more frequently on how they are doing. Again, parental supervision or some sort of help from adults just to be in the space, not to necessarily provide guidance on or corrections to student work, but rather to make sure that students are on some sort of productive task that this teacher is being asking of them is 100% critical to the success of your students and the Remote Academy program. Some of you have noticed differences in staffing and access to students. For example, our kindergarten classroom teachers currently do not have instructional assistants on hand, which can make smaller group work more difficult in the kindergarten setting. This is not from a lack of trying. but we are aware that in-person instructional assistants carry the additional burden of frequently substituting in the school's building, particularly in this time when absences can be extended due to testing needs, and this also extends to tutors and other support staff that exist in buildings. So while I and our teachers continue to advocate for support from these our school counterparts, we also recognize that on a day-to-day basis this can't always happen, and we are looking for other solutions beyond the norm. It's just another way that we're trying to adjust our practices to meet the needs of our kids and the needs of what is understandably a very difficult time for schools to operate in. Student work and the kinds of work that our teachers are assigning has also needed to be adjusted. We're aware that right now a lot of digital-based assignments are being given out to our students, but we also recognize that relief is coming. We have several different kinds of composition notebooks, grammar notebooks, and other more tactile, traditional-based assignments and tools coming in our next supply line handout, which should be coming in the next few weeks or so, along with art and other materials. This will help our teachers change up the kind of work our students are doing. Many of you also expressed concerns around the social emotional needs of our students, particularly asking poignant questions about how we as a school and our teachers in the classroom can better support student engagement and interaction, not just with their teachers, but with one another. There are some things that we can and can't do to support this kind of social emotional learning at this time. One of the things that we are looking forward to is the increased expansion of the use of breakout groups in Google Meets. This is a feature that was only recently released this week and is still being rolled out to educators across the country. Currently, roughly around 80% of our teachers have access to it, and we do expect all of them to have access to it in the near future. This will allow our teachers to assign different kinds of work that is more collaborative in nature to our students, and will give them an opportunity to lean on one another to problem solve and do the work commonly done in small groups in our classrooms. Of course, this still comes with a technology learning curve, and we're not exactly sure how this tool will play out with all of our students' iPads, but we know that we are always making adjustments in this area to try to better the connectivity of our students to one another. Some of you have asked for such things as class rosters and email lists to parents, so that you might be able to make deeper social connections between the students in your child's specific classroom. Unfortunately, at this time, this is not something that we can provide as a district. We do respect our families' rights to their privacy around their contact information, and it's also a bit of a sticky situation, as of course there are many families who have varying degrees of health concerns in their homes, and we do not want to create uncomfortable situations for those families where they have different degrees of comfort between kids meeting up, whether it's virtually or masked on a playground or in some other outdoor setting. And we hope that you will respect this different degrees of willingness to interact beyond the remote classroom settings. I will use this opportunity here to point out the different ways that we are communicating with you and the ways that one might connect with other families in the Remote Academy. Specifically, the Facebook group under the Burlington Remote Parents Group 2020-2021 does have a number of families connected to it that may be receptive to making connections and will personally reach out in a space where one might be able to arrange such things with families of similar willingness to different kinds of risk levels. This is not a group moderated by the Burlington Public Schools. Burlington Public Schools and myself specifically are operating some channels, including our Instagram page and a new Facebook page that is coming out, as well as the Burlington Public School blog and the Remote Academy parent support website that we mentioned earlier. Our last A is always one of great intrigue between parents and families and community members alike, and that is assessment. Your students are certainly being assessed by our teachers this year through a variety of tools, all in the effort to improve instruction at the Remote Academy and to fine-tune the kinds of learning experiences that your students are going to have. There are several tests that are administered to students both in person and at the Remote Academy over the course of a calendar year. In some cases, these tests are administered several times. Symphony Math is, of course, our math assessment program, while iReady is an ELA-based test system that creates reports that will be distributed, likely via Aspen, to Remote Academy students later this fall, as we close our testing window for our K-5 students. Lexia, the DRAs, and the Foundations program are also assessment programs that will be used to help teachers assess students' reading and literacy skills and allow them to fine-tune the type of instruction their students receive and the type of work that the students are expected to output over the calendar year. To learn more about each of these assessments, visit the very bottom of the Curriculum tab on the new Remote Academy Parents Support website. Lastly, I'd like to direct everyone's attention to Seesaw Family, the partner app to Seesaw that your students regularly use to both receive and hand in student work to their teachers, both their ELA and math teachers, but also the specialists over the course of a day. Seesaw Family allows parents to see the kind of work that their students are doing and also allows them to give feedback of their own, both in the kinds of likes or loves that you would see on a social media platform like Instagram, but also the ability to give out personal notes, hopefully of positive support to our students' learning. This is also an opportunity for you to see the kind of feedback that our teachers are assigning. Though please be aware that a teacher may assign several Seesaw assignments a day, and their specific attention to all of those assignments is not expected, as such work would require hours and hours and hours of additional time far outside the means of a regular school day. Of course, myself and Superintendent Dr. Conti and Assistant Superintendent Mr. Patrick Larkin are also interested in receiving feedback from you as parents about how the Remote Academy and all of our schools are doing for you and your child during this very unordinary school year. A fall feedback form will be sent out in the near future if it hasn't already been sent, and please be tuning in to additional communications with you and all of our Remote Academy families around opportunities for you to have more personal conversations with Mr. Musselman around the needs of your students and what you're seeing on the parent side of the Remote Academy school. Keep in mind that there are many ways to communicate with us, but that we hope that you will use the guidelines laid out here around who and how to communicate those needs. If your child is sick, be sure to email the teacher of your student the day of so they can be marked excused in our student database. If you're having device trouble, you should email the classroom first, as they can sometimes handle simple solutions. But if there is still trouble, you should email our IT specialist, Mrs. Michelle Artizzoni, directly at the email listed here. In classroom concerns, please be sure to reach out to our classroom teachers first, as they'll be able to speak most personally and professionally about what's going on in their classrooms. If you're still having trouble, you can also reach out to me, and for any other general questions and concerns around the Remote Academy, you may reach out to me at musselman@bpsk12.org. As mentioned, feel free to connect with the Remote Academy directly via Instagram and Facebook, but for all BPS news, check out their main website, burlingtonpublicschools.org. Remote Academy announcements and information will also be posted here as well, and likely linked to through our social media accounts. Thanks so much for taking time out of your day to learn more about how we are supporting your students at the Remote Academy. And again, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you so much, and stay well.